This is a continuation on from the extended discussion that video that we had last time. So when we are looking at our forecast, we need to have all the primary values that have been included. So that is your actual prediction values as well as your minimum and maximum values. You must include a table and a graph, and also discussing whether or not your prediction value of a negative boundary is actually makes sense. So in our case, total marriages and civil unions, we don't have any less than 0. You can't have less than 0 marriages or civil unions. So therefore, these values here wouldn't make sense and should all be accounted for as 0 in your discussion. And that should be an extended piece of discussion. So make sure you are including your forecast value as well as your minimum and maximum values and your units in each of these, even in the extended discussion. So here's an example. But what's also a really good idea is adding in any findings that you have from your residuals as an extended discussion, because the reason that your forecast boundaries can be larger is if you have residuals. So if you see down here, we can see levels of residuals that have not been accounted for, and it increases the boundary at those points in our forecast cycles. So adding in that level of discussion because of your residuals at certain points, and understanding that the Holt-Winters model takes into account the most recent data, and we've got in the most recent data 2 points that were incorrectly identified or adapted to in our model, we can see that that was going to increase our boundary at those, that our margin of error at those points. The last thing that we need to do in terms of an extended discussion for merit and excellence is a conclusion. Now, this conclusion has to be a well-rounded one. It needs to summarize everything that you've already identified, remembering it's a summary as well. Making sure it also links back to your purpose. In your purpose, you said, who is going to be interested? What are you investigating? What is your question? Making sure you have a answer to that question, making sure you have a direction for the person who would possibly use this data. Now, this should also include research, but it should include your existing research. No new research sources should be added in the conclusion unless it is pertaining exactly to what could be done in the future. That would be the only case where you'd use new research sources. Otherwise, all of your existing sources should match into your conclusion. So, making sure that you have written a purpose with research, produced your graphs with all the correct headings, remembering if you're aiming for merit to excellence, picking additive or multiplicative and identifying why. So watching those videos will be a very good thing. Making sure you've got an analysis for trend, seasonality, and recomposition with research, making sure you write up an analysis for your forecast, rounding off with a conclusion that ties back to your purpose, and making sure it is handed in by the due date. Ignore this one here because this was last year's